Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I would like to share with you all my final thoughts on the Vosteed knives and Wayne Sharp World collaborative work. This is the Thornton. I'm going to tell you guys up front, I love how this knife looks, how it is in use, and overall it's an excellent knife. If you want to stick around for a couple of the little nitpicky things and what I think about this overall design moving to the future, let's hang out, stick around. We're gonna do some size comparisons in a sec, but first I want to talk about where I've seen this available. You can get it off of Vosteed's direct website. It's actually going to be the same price as White Mountain Knives, but of course it's not available at White Mountain Knives at the moment. There are new colorways coming out with G10 that look pretty cool, so a little bit of splash of color for people who are just kind of tired of black and blue and OD green. Nothing wrong with that. I've experienced plenty of that and it's just fine. But there are new color flavors coming out, I suppose. 79 bucks, 79 bucks. That's not too bad, but I do think based off how this thing feels, I kind of feel like it could have been brought to the market a little bit less, not by much. I'm just being a cheap ass at this point, and I understand that. I'm definitely not made of money, that's for sure. But I picked this up really just in support of another wonderful individual in the community, Wayne Sharpworld, of course. And I wanted to see what this thing was all about. So as I mentioned earlier, in use, it's been excellent, and mainly because it's such a simple profile and it's really just meant to go to work. This blade shape is excellent. It's on the thicker side, I'd say, for blade stock thickness, and a whole lot of power behind that tip right there. The slightest little curve of belly, it's not flat, but it's pretty close. So definitely a sheep's foot styled blade. I love it. And if you are a fan of this blade shape, this is just going to fall in line with probably your daily rotation or your weekly rotation of knives that you like to pick up and just take to work and just go to town with. So let's do some size comparisons here. Let's start with some larger ones. This is the Spyderco PM2. The Thornton is definitely on the more compact medium side. I definitely wouldn't call it small, but it's not large either. So definitely, schmedium, we'll call it schmedium, I guess. Full size RSK, Doug Ritter Hogue. Let's do some largish medium knives. Well, this one's large. This is the Wee Praxis. So there you go. Here is the Civivi Vision FG. So Vision FG is just a little bit longer, mainly because of that forward finger space right there. But the amount of cutting edge is damn near the same, so that's pretty cool. So you get just as much usable blade length in a more compact overall, pocket footprint, I suppose. Here is another relatively compact knife. This is the Native 5 Spyderco. And last is going to be the Civivi Elementum Wharncliffe. So this is a true Wharncliffe, flat edge, no curve or nothing, and it's definitely a lot smaller. So as you can see, the Thornton is definitely a medium-sized knife. So a lot of people, I'd say, will be able to get around this. I don't think there'd be much of a benefit to doing like an extra large. While it would be cool, I think it would be really cool if there was an extra large. The only thing is that you gotta get a manufacturer that can actually make a good button lock knife, like with a strong button lock, because my experience, at least this is just me, when it comes to button lock knives, when the blade is large, thick, heavy, whatever, it's just a larger, more mass, right? There's a whole lot of mass here. Pivot, you can't really do much about it. If it has bearings, it's going to be really smooth. If you have washers, tolerances are going to have to go up. Production is probably going to cost a little bit more, and it's no longer going to be a budget knife, I suppose. So if we could stick with a bearing pivot system, that'd be awesome. The only thing is that with so much mass coming down and you can't really change the size of the pivot, it's gonna make the knife feel a little a little cheap, I suppose. So if there's a stronger spring, and not so much like the actual throw on the button, it is nice and everything as it is, but if I'm just trying to imagine if this was a much larger overall knife, if there was a much thicker, more aggressive spring, and the design allowed for what's going on. Oh, I got stuck for a second. If the spring was just a little bit stronger overall, I think that'd be awesome. As is, the spring that was on here, I had to remove it damn near immediately after the unboxing because I had very little faith in it. And that has nothing to do with Wayne himself or the design or anything like that. It was just the execution and the company that actually produced it, right? So here's the spring. I did mess with it a little bit. I took it apart and I found out that this is actually very sensitive, at least when I went to go put it back together. When it came to putting the pivot in, it locked itself and I couldn't actually open it, and I had to like force it open almost, and it actually ended up deforming the spring a little bit. So I was like, ah, crap. So I trimmed the piece of spring that got deformed. My fault, right? And I actually have a butt ton of springs that Remet sent me to do some I think I was doing like customer service work for them. I've only ever had to like do it like 2 or 3 times, nothing crazy, but I still have a butt ton of springs from a previous model that they had issues on. And so what I did was I took one of their springs. I actually have one right here. See if I can get it. So here's one of the Remet springs. It's a little bit narrower than the one that comes installed, but because of the quality difference of the springs, the Remet spring is a whole lot stronger and stiffer, allowing for a more satisfying, snappy action. Now, you can only do so much when it comes to how everything else is machined and the fit and finish and all that, tolerances and all that good stuff. One of the things that I actually ran into when it came to putting in a different size spring is the length of this. When this spring is fully compressed, it's actually like one coil rotation longer than the actual spring that comes in here. So there is essentially a custom spring in here at this point. So it's not factory, but once I put the spring in here, I only had to probably take it apart like 2 times just to make sure that the compression thickness was of proper size for everything to properly seat itself and not mess around with anything else. It's good. It's definitely a whole lot better now. The pivot feels just as smooth. It is drop shutty and has really everything that you would expect from a button lock knife. The only thing is that this is it's a little bit different of a design than a standard plunge lock. It is still at its core a plunge lock. It's just internal. So as you can see, you can't actually visually see any of the internals, which I think it's really cool. And Vosteed is, I believe, one of the only people that are doing this, and they're calling it the Trek lock. In my opinion, it allows for at least double the amount of contact space, surface area. So side to side, that's mainly related to the pivot and how tight it is, but it's cranked down all the way and no side to side. I didn't like mash the actual bearings into the steel, so there's no like weird rolly feeling, you know what I mean by that. Actual like movement in the pivot, nothing there, but also when it's locked up or down, there's nothing. There is truly and absolutely nothing up and down. You got to muscle it and maybe you could possibly imagine something, but it's not there. So that's something that I think is really impressive. So the execution and the idea behind the Trek lock is not gimmicky by any means. There is, there's definitely something special there, and I do hope to see in future iterations of, whatever other work or people that they collaborate with. The only thing is that I truly believe that the design overall would benefit from a much more robust spring. That's just me. I like something a little bit stronger. So if you're looking at this design and you're thinking, oh, I really want to try that out, I haven't had the best experience with button lock knives, they're usually really mushy or soft, this does feel like an early production button lock knife. That's just really how it feels to me. And even now that I've put a new spring in there that is technically stronger, it makes everything feel a little bit snappier. It's still on the lighter side. But for an individual coming from a lot of other detent having knives, and I love a nice crispy detent, whether it's on the stronger side or on the lighter side, there's a clear difference between the two and how they feel in operation overall. Even still, you can get around this thing and actually be able to enjoy it. This is something that I would call a comfy fidget knife. I absolutely love to fidget just mindlessly. It takes all of like half a brain cell to operate this knife and many other knives once you have them and you play with them for a little while. Whether I'm driving from store to store during work, or I'm at home, or I'm in the kitchen, or just whatever, I'm flipping on the toilet, like it doesn't matter. This is a comfy fidget. And while it is an incredible, useful tool as well, this just feels very well finished overall. And it doesn't make a whole lot of crazy, loud noises that would attract a lot of attention. What I mean by that is recently I was messing around with my Praxis. So I actually re-anodized it because I had some like weird markings and stuff, and now it's all uniform and nice looking and whatnot. But this is a loud knife. It is on the larger side, of course, but it has a traditional detent. It's full titanium, and it has a loud closing noise and a loud opening noise. So this is something that would drive my partner absolutely insane. This, on the other hand, not so much. It is very smooth. It is on the quiet side, and it's something I could just do nonstop. It's very comfortable, and I love using it. So that's a plus to me, actually. But I'd say that it's mainly due to how tight it is within the pivot, also based off of the materials that they're using, which will kind of deaden some of the sound. This is my Carta scales. If Vosteed, for whatever reason, decided this thing sold so freaking great, we're gonna make an exclusive in titanium in whatever pattern or whatever, this might be a much louder, tingy sounding knife, which has its satisfactions, of course, and there are plenty of people that love that a metallic ting. I think it's a beautiful sound, but that's just my little thing there. It's something that I have appreciated about this overall design. It's compact, it's wonderful in use. To take it apart and put it back together, it's relatively easy. The only thing is that you have to get things sort of like leveled and properly lined up, or else you may run into issues, mainly because of the pivot and how snug everything needs to be before it could properly be seated down for you to crank down the pivot and be able to, run it as normal. So there's that. There really isn't a whole lot much more to go over. You guys know I'm not the biggest fan of satin finish, but I'm not gonna knock it because this is the one that I chose, versus the other ones. There are like a black wash finish one. Those look cool, but for whatever reason I wanted this one, so that's my fault, my problem. I already talked about the blade material. I believe the 14C28N, excellent. It's borderline budget super steel. It keeps coming back for more with a quick little stropping. I did sharpen this, and one thing I did notice is that the factory edge, I swear to you guys, it's probably between like 25 and 23 degrees because it was very thick behind the edge, and going through cardboard, it really wasn't the best. And I know it's not really meant for that. It's not meant to be a cardboard destroyer, but you would think it would be, being, as tall as it is and the blade shape. It just kind of, it made me think that. So I decided, well, the best thing I can do is put a low angled edge on this. I tried to put a low angled edge, and I started creating a pretty nasty like smile kind of curve there. It's a little difficult to see, and if the video isn't coming out as clear as it really needs to be to show the detail, I hit it down here as best as I possibly could, but there's some funkiness going on down there, and that's really due to the actual plunge grind itself. It wasn't really executed the best, but this isn't a super high-end knife. My only concern is that if this does eventually become a high-end knife, are they going to put a hollow grind on this to aid in that? or make the plunge grind a little bit further back, maybe past the actual scale there, kind of like how Chris Reeve Knives does. Or for example, this is just one that I have out because I've been using it a lot. This is, you could sharpen this thing to, you know, like all day long, because a plunge grind is literally all the way back over here, so you can sharpen this like a million times. I'm not expecting for them to have this giant triangle of missing space there, but something a little bit more subtle. What do I have? What is something slightly more subtle? Okay, check this out. This is on the full-size Doug Ritter. Now, while this isn't perfect by any means, the plunge grind is basically right above the actual scale. You could see that kind of like a little silver shimmer right there versus when it becomes actually flat. I can probably sharpen this thing a good 8-10 times, you know, without having to actually, you know, sharpen it a lot, you know, do some like heavy, like I'm just like chewing away material. But if I do, you know, 8 to 10 different like sharpenings, I'm still going to get a butt ton of life out of this knife before I start to hit it back there. So this is excellently executed. I love that for sure. And I know that it could have been done here, but it wasn't. But little things like that, they're important to people who actually use their shit. And even though this does have essentially an internal stop and there's nothing out here that contacts any sort of pin for engagement, I could technically go and Dremel that out and, you know, make it easier for when I go to sharpen it. Because if I keep sharpening it at the angle that it's at, and I think it's at like 19, there's like a 19-degree angle in here, 19 or 18, it's something around there. It's super slicey now and it's excellent, but if I keep sharpening it there, I'm gonna start hitting the actual shoulder right there, and it's not gonna look good. But that's pretty much it. The hardware that's on here, it's super minimal, extremely simple. One thing that I did, an issue that I ran into, was I actually had to remove the studs because on my sharpening system, on the Wicked Edge, the stones, let me see if I can get one of my stones to show you. Here, this is a good example. Okay, so this is one of the stones. I know it's large and ugly looking and grimy, but bear with me. So you see how there's this plastic or resin lip that the actual diamond plated stone sits in, because because the stone doesn't actually come all the way out to the edge, it's hard to get nice and tight. But how the actual knife sits in the clamp of the actual sharpener itself, it actually hits the studs there. So I didn't scrape them, or I didn't sharpen. I didn't actually like make any rub marks on the studs. They're still in perfect condition, which is awesome. But when I was kind of lining everything up, I looked downward and I noticed, well, like this is my view when I'm sharpening. I looked down and I noticed that the stone was like, it was like right there, and it was basically on the actual stud. And I was like, yep, you know what? Now I'm not even gonna risk it. So with a T6, popped off the screw really easily, really easy to put back. They didn't use any permanent Loctite, which is nice. There was some blue Loctite on there, but it was so easy to break. And then put it back together, it's, again, really easy. So a little T6 there. T6 for the pocket clip screws. They are flat and inset into the micarta scales, which is excellent. So plenty of room for any sort of thickness of pant material. T8 for the minimal body screws right there. There's one on here, one over there. And of course for the pivot. They do have a D-shaped pivot, which is nice. And a whole lot of weight relieving. You see all those holes in there, and the actual steel liners are inset, which is cool. So this is a very sturdy feeling knife overall. It is on the lighter side. We can go ahead and take the weight right here. 3.4, nothing crazy. So there's that. Go ahead and just check out the edge. I literally just sharpened this and it's beautiful. So there's a coarse, what is it? What did it put? It's like a 19 or 18 degree edge. It's like 400 grit. And I mean, it's awesome. I love it. This is ready to go. this is going to continue seeing a butt ton of pocket time, and I really do believe that this design will go far in the future, whether they do premium versions or hollow ground or exclusive or an XL. There's so much that could be done with this overall. It's a compact utility blade shape. One of the best things about it is the Trek lock, and of course that it's, you know, designed by a fellow YouTuber, which is awesome, and I love that. So that is really it. So not much more to talk about. There's no mounting for lefties, but I did discuss that already in the unboxing. It's unfortunate, but of course this is just the one time. Maybe in the future there might be, you know, options for a different carry, but of course that is going to be left up to the designers and the company. So if you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like down below. If you are subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support and your patience, of course. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribe, because I have plenty more videos coming your guys' way. And with that being said, have a wonderful rest of your day.